Welcome back to StoryTube. Today we're talking about bears. No, hold on, that's not right. We're talking about hockey. No, that's not right either. We are talking about Sweden. We're talking about winter. We are talking about teenagers. And what is scarier than that? We are talking about Beartown. I read Beartown by Fredrik Backman, and this is a Booktube darling a little bit, at least that's my impression, and I have had it on my shelf for a really long time. I had read A Man Called Ove a couple of years ago, loved it, and it was finally time to read my second Backman book. This consolidates Fredrik Backman as a new favourite writer, because I loved Beartown, I loved A Man Called Ove, and they're both tonally very different. Where A Man Called Ove does this tragicomedy thing or dramedy, where it was making me cry and then making me laugh out loud, and it's trying to deal with some heavier subject matter but also make it lighthearted. Beartown is not like that. Beartown is not really a funny book or a lighthearted book. It is a hopeful book, but it also deals with a good bit of darkness. Beartown is the name of a small town in the north of Sweden where there's barely any sunlight during the winter and barely any nighttime during summer. And this town used to have a really good professional hockey team. That is no longer the case. However, the junior team this year are very good. And this has caused the community to put a lot of expectations on this team. Basically, they're thinking, well, if the junior team can win this tournament, then that means next year some of them will play in the senior team, and the senior team will be better, which means that will attract more sponsors, which will therefore attract more people to come into the town, which will bring money into the town, which will attract business, which will create jobs, and Beartown can flourish. So a lot of expectations are being put on these teenage boys that just want to play hockey. A lot of expectations, but also a lot of responsibility and praise. And we are essentially exploring what that dynamic does to everybody in the town, to the boys on the team, to the boys that don't make the team, to the girls in the school, in the town that don't get to play hockey because there's no female team, to the parents, some of them who have been born and raised in Beartown, some who have married people from Beartown and are now there and are seen as outsiders. And we just explore through these little puzzle pieces the community and the fabric of this small town. And honestly, I love small town books. If they're well done, they can be incredibly compelling, and I think this one is really, really well done. I will also say you do not need to know or care about hockey to enjoy this book. I know nothing about hockey, I don't care about hockey, but I think depending on where you've grown up, you are likely to have grown up around some kind of sport being really important to your community. Whether it's important to you or not is a different story. There are people in this book who don't care about hockey, but they are affected by it because the people around them care. And I think in my case, I saw a lot of people caring very, very much about basketball. Obviously also football, but not so much people that I knew playing. And some of that resonated with me in this book because I do recognize the passion that people put into something like that, even if they're not watching professionals. But also the weight of the expectations and what that does to the teenagers that are being subjected to it. So I thought that was very interesting, and I also just really liked his writing style in this one. I wasn't sure if it was completely working for me for a while, and when I talked about it in the wrap-up, I mentioned it as something that I was slightly unsure about. But he does this. First of all, he does some foreshadowings. There's foreshadowings throughout the entire book. The narrator is very present. So the narrator will tell you something about a character, or there's a group of characters and the narrator will say, oh, one of them would make it to the senior team and one of them wouldn't, and you don't know which one's which, for example, right? Like, this is more of a silly example. But there's like sprinkles like that just keep hooking you. And then there's also a lot of reflection from the narrator about the nature of the small town and the people there. And sometimes it took me out of it a little bit, because I thought it was maybe a little bit overdone with like what is grief? And let's have a paragraph talking about it. And there's a lot of repetition in it. The repetition really worked for me because I thought it really brought things together. And sometimes it feels like you're having an eagle-eye view of the town where the narrator is just popping into different people's houses and telling you like, oh, there's a woman making coffee and there's a young girl playing a guitar and there's a boy walking through the forest, and you know who is who. And it kind of paints this outside view picture of the puzzle pieces, and it gives you this sense of almost inevitability, where you can just tell something bad is going to happen and you're not sure what it is or how it will happen and who will be involved, but it will happen and you can't stop it and nobody can stop it. And I really, really liked that. Like, that really worked for me and it kept me very, very engaged. The setting also really worked for me. It's a great winter book. It's dark and cold and snowy, and the landscape is very much a part of the story, and it affects how the town functions and how people think and how people are with each other. That was just a nice add-on to the story and the book. It just felt cozy to read it with a blanket on the sofa when it's dark at 4 p.m. So that was just a nice coincidence of when I picked it up. But it's a really great book. I think it made me reflect about a lot of things. It also gave me some nostalgia, but also primarily made me think, oh, I'm so grateful that I'm no longer 16. But I really, really enjoyed it. And I want to say before I wrap it up as well, this is the first book in a trilogy. However, you don't need to read it as a trilogy. This does have an ending. It has a hook at the beginning that gets resolved at the end, but the second one and the third one explore the lives of these people a few years later. And as I was reading it, I wasn't sure if I would have to, or if I would feel the need to read the second one, but by the time I reached the end, I felt that I was so invested in the characters and the town that I just want to spend more time with them. So I do want to read the second one and the third one. It's just that kind of book where you want to keep hanging out here. You want to keep hanging out with the people. You just want to check in with how they're doing and how they got there and what's going on in their lives. And this is probably the closest to what I was looking for in terms of something I could really be invested in, and just a good story to sink into, and just a setting that feels real with people that feel real. It's great. Fredrik Backman is a great writer, and I own Anxious People by him as well. But I think the next ones I'll be reading will be, I think it's Us Against You is the second one, and then The Winners is the third one. So yeah, I'm very happy that I finally read this book that I've had for a while and that I've been pretty certain I was going to enjoy for a while. There's also a HBO show now coming out, or has come out. I'm actually not sure. If anybody knows, let me know. But yeah, Beartown. I would recommend it. If this sounds interesting to you from what I've said, you should pick it up. It's a really, really good book. Again, I wouldn't say it's a happy book. There's some heavy stuff going on in there. But then again, that has just been a theme for me this year. So what else did you expect? Let me know in the comments if you've read Beartown, or if you want to read Beartown. If you've read other Fredrik Backman, like Anxious People, did you like it? Would you recommend it? Do you think I would like it? Let me know. We'll chat in the comments. And until then, I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Almost inevitable in